What's up, everyone, and welcome to another Rust electrical tutorial. I'm Austin, and today we're going to be talking about how to network HBHF sensors so that you can detect players from all sides of your base to a single output. Specifically, this question has come up multiple times with my base lockdown videos. How can I expand, a single HBHF to have multiple HBHF that all terminate in a single output to trigger, say, a lockdown or whatever. So we're going to go ahead and cover 3 ways you can do that, starting with wired. This is probably I would argue, maybe the worst way to do this, but I wanted to cover it just because you can do it. So you can think of this as a package. So every single one of these has this package of 3 items, a branch, an HBHF, and an AND switch. And to expand it, you essentially build another one of these stacks here. Post the stack, you need to use OR switches to sort of whittle them down into a single output. And so depending on how many of these you make, that's going to depend on how many OR switches you need, which is going to change the power requirement. So that's why this is not the greatest way to do it. I have actually used this method before. It works just fine, but it's kind of a bit resource heavy and power heavy. So to build it is relatively simple. This is just a power source coming from this power bank. I'll link that video there, but I've got a power source coming over here. This in its current configuration with 4 of these, which is I think what most commonly someone would do. It's 26 Rust watts in order to power this whole thing. I have a sort of a 4 output splitter that I constructed here, just so that each one of these outputs 6 Rust watts, including this one here. This is my 4th extra one, because each one of these stacks all the way through the end needs to have 6 arriving, and we can count through 1 just to see why that is. So if you start here at the bottom, this is set to 3, so you have 3 coming out of the branch out, and you have 2 coming out of the power out. 1 is powering this, that's your 6. So this 3 here, if you trace it from the branch out, this is arriving at the AND switch. This is not powering the AND switch, and I'll cover that. The HBHF sensor is what powers the AND switch. So this will, once this is powered past the full 3 through this AND switch, arrive here with 3. You'll have 2 left over coming out of here because this needs 1. You'll have 2 arriving here. This will use 1. You'll have 1 left over, and that's your signal. That's your reference volt there that you can trigger something with. And so, just like you do with the root combiners, it's the same idea as however many of these things you have minus 1 is how many OR switches you'll need to bring them down into a single output. So if you build 5 of these, you'll need 4 OR switches to bring it to 1. It's as simple as that. So the unit is just this stack of 3 items. From here, of course, we set that to 3, like I said, and we trace that out. The output of this, the power out of the branch, has 2. That's 1 to power the HBHF sensor itself, and then 1 to pass arriving here at the AND switch. And so the way an AND switch works, if you don't know, is that it requires power at both inputs A or B. It doesn't matter, what you hook these things up to, but it requires power to both of these to arrive. And what of those 2 power sources, it's going to pass the greatest one. So the way this is set up, the HBHF sensor just functions basically to power the AND switch, allowing the passage of the 3 that's sitting here at the gate. You can think of it, this is the gatekeeper, I guess, and this is going to pass that 3 tracing out, as we said. So and that's it. So I just have these 4 set up. Each one has 6. So I've got 26 arriving here. 19's coming out of the branch out to the splitter. It uses 1. I have 18 left, 6, 6, and 6. And then we have 6 coming out of here for that last one. And that's it. So all you got to do. And you can test this to show that this works. Let me just take myself out of vanish mode. There we go. And so I've got these currently set to include authorize. And you, the player, would want this to be include authorized, exclude others. That's what you would want this set to. And so I have this set to include me right now as you'd want it. If I toggle this over to exclude others, you'll see that this one has detected me. Both of these passes are on this AND switch. It's routing through and has triggered with the 1 Rust watt that I wanted to arrive there. Same thing with these. If I just turn these over, I can have up to all 4 of them going at the same time. It doesn't matter. They will all detect and they will all pass through. You can have any order of them on or off. It doesn't matter. You can see by the lights there until they're all not detecting anymore. That light will stay on and then turn off once they're all off. So it does work. So you can set this up around your base and have one of these on all 4 sides of your compound or whatever. And as players approach, it will detect them and it will result in a single Rust watt arriving here. This light here represents whatever it is you're trying to trigger. So in the question of the I recently got, it would be the triggering the base lockdown from the version 2. I'll link that video for you. So that's it for wired. Now, moving on, this is what I believe to be the absolute best way to do this. This is how I do it now. I never do it that way anymore. The wireless way is so much easier. And so we'll just run through this. I've got these 5 branches here. These are all just for power distribution. How you distribute your power is up to you. I like to do it like this. Again, it doesn't matter how you do it. Total for 5 items. I've got 4 HBHF sensors that are going to detect, around the base, and I've got this 5th item, which is the RF receiver. And so you've got the broadcaster here, you've got the receiver here, and all I'm doing is, so I've got these 5 branches, sorry, and I'm sending 15. So each setup, every time you want to set one of these up around your base, it costs 3 rust watts. It's very, very cheap. It's 1 to power the HBHF, 1 to pass. It's going to pass, and that pass is going to power that. So that's 2 rust watts right there, and then 1 to power the branch switch. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's just 3. So you just multiply however many of these you set up by 3, and that's how much it costs. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a 5th item. So 3 times 5 is 15. I've got this set up for 15. If you wanted to keep adding these, it's very, very simple. You just add a stack. It's just these 2 items, and just add 3. So if you added 1 more stack, you just add a branch to the power, add 3 to this. That's 18. And you're good to go, and you just keep doing that. So this one does scale more linearly than that one. This is much easier to distribute the power to. And basically how it works is from a power source, we'll just cover this one here. So I've got power coming out of here. These are set to their default configurations. You don't have to mess with these branches at all. Just daisy chain them, power out to power in, power out to power in down the line. And if that 2 is arriving here at the HBHF sensor of it, it uses 1. It passes 1 once it detects somebody. That 1 powers this. I have this set to a frequency of 3,000 in celebration of my 3,000 subscribers. And then that's it. So I chose just an example 3,000 frequency. You would pick some frequency. You're going to set everything to the exact same frequency. Just pick something random, and then set your receiver, your RF receiver, to the same frequency. That's all you have to do. So what happens is when this detects something, it passes that reference volt, and that arrives here. This thing broadcasts the frequency. This thing receives it. It passes, because it also, if you look at this, following this up, it has 2 arriving at it as well here. And once it detects something, if it receives the frequency, it'll pass 1. And that's run into this light, and this light represents whatever it is you're trying to trigger. So this is considerably easier. So if I were to go ahead and trigger this, I'm just the same thing. I've got this set up as include authorized, so that it detects me. You, the player, would want this set up as include authorized, exclude others. That's what you would want it. So if I swap this over to exclude authorized, it's going to detect me. There it goes. It sent that signal out. This thing is receiving it, and it's sending that reference over to turn on that light. So that would be the base lockdown, that would be the door, whatever it is you're trying to have these things truncate into 1, 2, that would be it. Same thing, it doesn't matter how many I have open or on, so they're all detecting me right now. So if I turn off these 2 to not detect me, it's still on, that one. So it doesn't matter what order, you would set this up at any location around your base, in your compound, wherever. It's really, really compact, easy to do, and if someone comes to that side, it'll detect. If someone comes to the other side, it'll also detect. Doesn't matter which one it is, and that's it. This, I believe, is the absolute best way to do this, and this is how I always do it since I moved on from the wired version. And so the final thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you kind of a little quick reminder that you can actually purpose a turret to do this exact same thing. And just for completeness of this video, I'm also going to show how you can do it. This left turret is sort of built similar to how the wired version is. I really don't recommend that you do this, but it really is simple as I've got a power block here. I'm running 26 out to these 2 branches so I can power the turrets. That's really not important. But once the turrets are powered, what I'm using is their has target. So this has target output, as long as this turret receives 11 rust watts, it needs 10 to run, 1 extra if you want to use 1 or all of these. I cover this in my turret video. I can link that if you want more information about turrets. But this output here, has target, will send out a reference volt if this thing targets somebody. You can use that the same way. It's kind of like a really expensive HBHF that also shoots at people, I guess. And what you need to do is make sure that I'm going to set this to exclude me so that it detects me. And if I turn this thing, whoops, I do not want to do that. Let me deauthorize from that. If I turn this thing on, as soon as it detects me, you'll see there it goes. So what's happening is the HBHF is detecting me, and the turret is detecting me. You can also, if you don't want to use an HBHF here, because the turret can act as the reference, you can literally just delete this. I just wanted to show you in case you have this already set up. But let's say I just get rid of that, run this over here. We'll just do this real quick. There we go. So if I set this to the 2, it's gonna pass 1. It'll power and pass 1. So it's it's 1 extra than it needs. But you don't even need the HBHF. You can just use the turret in its own right, just as it. So if I turn this off, so stop detecting me. You see the AND switch now only has one side powered, and so you know the turret's gonna, if it's on, it'll supply the other side. It's gonna pass that 2, so that's 1 extra than you need, but it doesn't matter. It'll pass and do the same thing that wired version was doing over there, except that instead of an HBHF, you're just using a turret in place of it. So you can repurpose turrets to do the same thing that an HBHF sensor does, just, you know, as a remote piece, I guess you can kind of think of. So this is actually a really good way. They also have a much farther detection range, so if you're looking to initiate a base lockdown, you can also, or whatever, you can use this. Same idea. Even easier if you don't want to use the AND switch and all this stuff. You can literally just tack on a broadcaster right next to a turret, make sure it has 11. So I've got 13 arriving here. I have this switch just so I can turn it on and off, and then I have that 1 extra available for the has target on the turret. And all I did was send that to this broadcaster, and so I set the broadcaster to 3000. We're just going to reuse that. If I turn this thing on, there we go. As soon as it targets me, it turned on the light. I just set it up to the same frequency to run to this light. So this, in my opinion, once again, is still the best way to do it. Just use broadcasters. You can do the wired versions if you want, using the AND switch, the properties of an AND switch. It is a perfectly fine way to do it. But I think going wireless and omitting all these different required OR switches and AND switches and all this other stuff makes this a whole lot easier to make. So that, folks, is just about all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. Otherwise, you can get me on my Discord. See you later.